Hey guys, before I start this review, you're going to notice I have a bit of mark around my eye. Reason because I was intending to do a bit more of a dramatic review involving a comedic segment. Unfortunately, due to budget and time, I couldn't do it. I recorded this review back in 2018 and have decided to upload it now because the third and fourth volume of the Class box set is about to be released. Due to Corona, I don't know when, but I've pre-ordered it, so hopefully you should be able to see it soon. Okay, let's start the review.
Now, you're probably expecting me to do a reaction series for Season 1. Well, I am not. Instead, I'm going to be reviewing the Class audio dramas, which released this August. So, without any further explanation to my origin or why the hell I have a C drawn on my face, badly, let's begin the first volume of Class, the audio drama. Right, what to say about Gifted? Well, first thing you've got to keep in mind is that I haven't listened to much Big Finish. The only other things I've listened to are a copy of The Meeting Phase from Doctor Who Adventures when I was like 8, and the I, Davros series. I recommend it. It's quite, messed up. So, as a continuation of the Class series, okay, when I say that, first thing you've got to take into account, this is not a second series, as in it doesn't resolve the cliffhanger at the end of Season 1. Instead, what happens is that these story arcs sort of insert themselves into the episodes and books, so you've got to figure out where they join up with the other stories. Also, another thing you can take into account is that these audio dramas, for some, well, possibly production thing, is that they only feature 2 or 3 of the cast. This one, Gifted, features Sophie Hopkins, Fadia Said, and follows them as Ram and April from the series. And basically they find a harpy. Well, they don't call them harpies. Basically it's a woman who lures young men into a trap, sort of like sirens, harpies, whatever mythology you want to compare it to, because that's what Class does best. It always compares their villains to a mythological approach. So, it starts out with a boy called Tom being abducted in 1967, and then he comes back in 2016, same age, trying to warn April about the threat of Mab. Okay, one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. Not the dumbest, but it's quite weird. So basically, she wants Ram by tricking him into thinking he likes football. She managed to get Tom by giving him a guitar and inviting him to the house. If strange women invite you in the house and give you instruments, don't accept them. Never go into a strange woman's house and let them play with their toys. Okay, that was phrasing. I'm sorry, that joke's too obvious. I give myself shame. Okay, so the first scene involving April and Ram, not sure that's the right phrase, but anyway, first moment with them, you get the stereotypical April's a good girl who basically wants to get on well, and Ram's basically a jock who likes sports. It's cliche, but that's also part of the humour that I love about Class, the series. All the characters are built around cliches, but the way they work is that it does a bit of comedic effect. You just gotta laugh. So basically, Tom goes to the, I would say meeting, but since it's just him and April, then it's not much. No, it's just them two. So he warns, so basically he shows April his home with Mab at the same time that Ram is there. So at first Ram starts to shrug off the fact that Mab is actually an alien. He starts to suspect it, but then he ultimately falls for it anyway, which is kind of an odd development really. I mean, he is a decent character. I wouldn't say he's my favourite out of the Class cast, Say that 3 times fast while on a hangover. Class. Shit. That's a challenge for you. He's very weird. It's like he keeps going back and forth between believing April and then wanting to be a successful player. He knows that Mab is evil, yet he still goes for it. It's a very weird and unexplained occurrence. There's also a lot of references to poems about the subject of being caught in traps. The only one I can recognise is La Belle La Dame Merci, which I learnt in school, but I've forgotten about it. So what happens is, when they find out what Mab is doing, she erases their memories and sends them back to school, but keeps Tom prisoner. There's this good bit where they go about their daily lives, but suddenly they get flashbacks, and it's done very well with the audio, with a good sound effect and an echo effect. So it's good. It's a good idea. It sort of like helps the story progress, and there's an odd moment where I get the sense that April is this story's doctor. Like, she's the doctor of the story and Ram's her companion, because he's asking all the obvious questions. Yeah, it's a very weird, because class didn't really follow that formula. It was normally Quill does something, the other characters do something else. So they go and investigate, they do a lot of good investigation skills, and Mab turns into a monster, but they never show her true form. Like, they don't describe it. So it's left up to imagination. But it does change her voice slightly to give the monstrous effect. So Tom dies of old age. He was only 67, but they explain that since 49 years have caught up with him, because Ab ages him. Mab. But then Ram, that's the bit where Ram decides that he wants to be a good footballer anyway, even though he knows Mab kept Tom prisoner and now aged him to death 49 years later. So they don't really explain. He just goes on about how he wants to be the best, but if you're going to be a prisoner in a strange woman's house and not be able to show off your skills, what's the point in getting them? That's like being a famous opera singer but then realising you become, like, I don't know. If you think of a comparison, leave in the comments below. I'm reading off notes, so just re-listen to it. Yeah, this is a bit improvised as well, sorry about that. And that leads to the end, where basically April manages to convince Ram that it's all not worth it. And this is actually the bit I kind of like the most about the episode, but it does get a little bit cheesy. Basically, one thing people find criticise about class is that the relationships go a bit too fast. Like, second episode, Ram and April sort of have little spats. Episode 3, they talk a bit and have a kiss. Episode 4, they're dating. This story sort of bridges the gap, so it sort of follows on from possibly the kiss at the end of Night Visiting, but it could set up the awkward tension of Corona of A Lonely Heart, which it does quite well. And it's interesting. I say, if you haven't watched Class yet, watch Night Visiting, listen to this, then go on to episode 4. It should help to connect the dots a bit more. For that, I give it a thumbs up. Overall, this isn't my favourite audio drama of the stories. It's not a bad one. I mean, none of the Class stories I've watched, read, listened to so far have been bad. This one, I would say, is a little bit slow, but it does keep you interested a bit.